So I'm curious about your childhood.
Hmm.
Um, you don't really talk a lot about like your family dynamic and like your upbringing.
Yeah.
So what what happened with your? I know your sister. She dealt with like a lot of issues.
Yeah. So my sister has, she first, like, we started noticing that she was like different or mentally ill when she was like 12. And
And you were how old?
I'm 3.5 years younger than her.
Okay, so you were
So
younger than her.
yeah, so I was younger, but I sort of always played the role of like the older sister taking care of her because of how bad it was. Um, so her mental illness like progressed over time. At first, it was just no one in my family knew what this was, but she started pulling out her own hair. So she'd have no eyebrows, no eyelashes. Then she started pulling out hair in her head as well.
Oh, she's
And
like like
it's
plucking it out.
plucking it out and
Oh,
then looking at, you know how there's like a follicle on it?
yeah.
And so she was like fascinated by the white like follicle at the end of it. So later we found out this is a disorder called dermatillomania, which is where you pull out
This is
your
a
own
real
hair.
thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Oh my god.
So it's a mental compulsion disorder.
Okay.
And so that was how her mental disorder like manifested itself first. And then came her anorexia. She had severe anorexia, so she was also like bone thin.
What the?
uh, yeah, so imagine, like, I was very young. So I see this person who has no eyelashes, no eyebrows, like bald spots that they inflicted on themselves, and extremely skinny. My sister looked like a monster to me at that age. I was scared to look at her.
Wow.
And I tell my parents, you have to make her draw eyebrows on for me to look at her because I was so scared. I thought that she was like a monster.
Wow.
Um,
This. Wow. I've never even heard of something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are so many different disorders that people have, that, a lot of people aren't aware of.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure you're more familiar with like bipolar and
Yeah,
schizophrenia.
of
So
course.
then after that, she was diagnosed with bipolar when she started having suicide attempts. And then after 18, she became like very like out of touch with reality. And that's when we're like, this is schizophrenia.
Did you ever worry that like you would have any of those things just because of the relationship, like genetically, like, oh, she's my sister, maybe I'll have something like this, or
So I always thought that, I got extremely lucky. I got a good, healthy brain.
yeah,
But I feel that because I saw such severe mental illness in her, to like her mental illness is very, very bad. Like the most severe that you can imagine, like
yeah,
needs to be hospitalized, that type of
like still
thing.
to this day.
She's pretty much catatonic now, which means
Oh,
that she's like you can't really even have a conversation with her.
wow.
She just stares off, like laughs, maybe can give you like a yes or no. So it's like to the full degree. It's
Oh,
very
wow.
severe. Um, but because I saw her mental illness and how bad it was, I thought that's what mental illness is. So I feel over the years like I've had depression, I've had issues, but I was like, I'm not mentally ill. I don't have a problem. I'm fine because that's what mental illness is. So I
Ah,
downplayed my own
I see.
because it wasn't to that severity.
It was a comparison, though. You were comparing that because it wasn't as bad that like you
That I
weren't
was
really dealing with
fine.
something.
Yeah, and that I don't need therapy or I don't need medication.
So have you ever gone to therapy? Have you ever done any of that stuff now?
I've done I've done therapy on and off, and I am looking for like a good therapist to go to. It's just such a leap to get over the hump and like
Yeah.
find someone that you like, and I guess I'm just like putting it off. But I have noticed since having my baby, I don't know if it's the hormones as well. I notice like my mood's definitely like dipping up and down, I think
Yeah,
more
the
than they
hormone
should.
fluctuation.
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
or it's triggered, maybe something like underlying. Cuz luckily I'm very good at self-regulating, so I notice like I'm walking down the street and I'm super happy right now, and then 10 minutes later I'm like, well, this whole day sucks, or like I'm
Really?
angry.
Like it's that drastic?
Yeah, in like a 10-minute period, and it's like, well, nothing happened, but because I'm so good at self-regulating and I know that those are just, it's not actually what's happening.
Right.
I'm able to tell myself like, no, it's fine, you're good, you're going to feel better in 10 minutes, in an hour, when you wake up tomorrow.
How do you think you learned that ability, like of self-regulating, like you being able to understand that this is happening to me, this is how I feel, but this isn't exactly what's going on? Like, where did you learn that from?
I suppose just I wasn't really as aware of it, but I guess I have been going through that for like years. And so, just from experience, you realize, like, hey, I felt like this before. And then like 10 minutes later or the next day, you were happy again. So just ride it out. So it's just
Damn.
from experience.
Yeah. That's really important you say this, though, because I can look back on all my anxiety, my moments, my panic attacks.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that really brought me solace was I realized in the beginning, it was always like, this is it. This is because I always had a fear of death and my anxiety was revolving around that. And I was like, I'm going to die. This is the moment. This is the thing. And it would be to this crazy degree where like my heart rate would like increase like physically to a crazy amount because I'd be so worked up, so worried.
Yeah.
And then it would always pass eventually and I'd be good. And then it would happen time after time after time.
What are
And
some
then,
examples of things that would like throw you into that?
oh man, it was, I hyper focus on things. So like I'm a very like my mind's very, very active and I'll hyper focus on things. So what happens to me a lot of the times is I'd lay in bed at night and I'd feel my heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And then
You're like, I'm going to have a heart attack.
yes. And I'd start to be like, wait, did it skip a beat? Is that normal? Is it beating too fast? Is it beating too slow? So and I can't even, yeah, a lot of times I'd end up crying. And the times I couldn't differentiate. Like I just kept thinking like something's wrong with me. And then it would just kind of grow. The worry would grow. And then like I would get almost somewhat erratic and I'd either be like calling my mom or like calling a girlfriend at the time. And next thing you know, like I'm calling the ambulance and then they put the EKG thing on me and they're like, you're good. You need like an Ativan, which is like a anxiety medicine.
Yeah.
And I realized over how many times it happened to me, that was the thing that brought me real solace. Like the same exact thing you said was this happened and it wasn't the last. This baby's so fucking cute. Hi, I'm over
He's
here.
listening to you.
Oh my God. So this wasn't the last. It's like, it's not going to be my last time. Cause it was like, 100 times that it happened. And I was like, okay, I'll be okay. And then I started to learn that and it started to change my life because I was able to recognize it.
Yeah.